evening, I'm Katerina Georgieva. It's election night in Ontario.
I just thought it was really convenient, fast. This was just so unique, so quick.
And I was here at 9 o'clock, the computers were all down.
My son's 11, he's in school and he needs a great leader to help out our community get better.
Thanks for joining us. Election Day is here, and just 3 hours remaining before polling stations close and the tallying of the ballots begins. Across Windsor, Essex, voters are casting their ballots to determine which candidates will represent them at Queen's Park. Arash Tashedi caught up with some voters outside a polling station in Windsor West.
What was the experience like voting today?
It was liberating, actually. I'm excited to see that there's going to be some changes coming to our community. Miss Linda McCurdy is amazing. She's one that I know she's going to make big changes.
I always vote, no matter if it's civic, provincial, federal, I always vote. That's a privilege, so I love it.
I voted for the least offensive one.
That is.
I'm not going to say.
No worries.
For some voters, there were some glitches. Elections Ontario confirmed there were some technical issues at some polling sites across the province. For some voters in Windsor West, it meant a second trip to the polling station to cast their vote.
I went in to vote and told to come back later because the computers were all down. That's all.
Thought there would have been like a backup plan in place if they were having technical issues, so we were a bit surprised that we had to wait for them to get organized, but that's how it goes with technology.
And we have reporters standing by in our 3 local ridings. First, many eyes are on Essex. It's considered one of the provincial races to watch, a riding the PCs are hoping to turn blue. Chris Ensing is covering that riding for us tonight, and we find him live in Amherstburg. Chris, what's at stake here?
Yeah, I'm just at the Sportsman Club here in Amherstburg. A steady stream of people entering to do their due diligence, to vote. Today, a beautiful day to go out and do that. And in Essex, there could be a lot of on the line here. When we look at what has happened, the NDP historically winning here for 10 years straight. But the man who did that, Taras Natashak, not on the ballot today. It is now Ron Leclerc who's running, trying to keep that streak alive and represent these people here in Queen's Park. But to do that, many believe he'll have to beat the Conservative candidate, Anthony Iliardi, who is running now for the first time in provincial politics, but has been involved municipally. If the Conservatives were to win, that would be something they haven't seen here in Essex since the 60s, when this riding was split up into different areas. Now, as well as those two, you have Manpreet Bradford, the Liberals, who has been going. When I spoke with her about door knocking, she said that there were people who told her that she was running a positive campaign and they were hopeful for change. As far as what type of focus this has provincially, we've seen both the NDP and the Conservative government send their leaders here in the lead up, both appearing on here on Sunday and Monday earlier this week. So a lot of attention being paid to these voters specifically.
And Chris, what are the things voters have on their mind today?
One of the things that I kept hearing was the idea of the budget, how much the government is spending. Some saying they understood that was needed to get ourselves out of the pandemic, but wondering what direction that budget will go next, saying they want to see that balance inside of that pocketbook for the provincial government. But what they're also looking at here as well is a need for infrastructure projects, talking about highways and hydro projects as 2 priorities they see this region needing to keep up with the growth that it's experienced so far. A lot to watch tonight, Katerina.
Thanks for that, Chris. That's Chris Ensing reporting live from Amherstburg tonight. Next, we go to Windsor-Tecumseh, where regardless of the outcome, someone new will be headed to Queen's Park because there's no incumbent. Jason Vio is outside of a polling station in Windsor-Tecumseh. Jason, this riding has long been an NDP stronghold. What can you tell us about the race?
Well, this time around, some may consider it to be a wide open race. None of the 3 main parties, so the PC party, the Liberals, or the NDP, those candidates have ever run provincially before. And what makes this one really interesting to watch tonight will be the fact that the incumbent, Percy Hatfield, chose to retire from politics and is not seeking re-election. Now, he was the NDP MPP since 2013, and before that, it was Liberal Dwight Duncan who held the seat since 1999, and over his tenure, he was also a high-profile cabinet minister.
Jason, what can you tell us about the candidates running tonight?
Well, for the PC party, you have Andrew Dowie. He's a Tecumseh town councillor, and he's been that for the last 8 years. In the last election cycle in 2018, he was actually acclaimed to that position, and when he's not around the council table, he's an engineer. Now, Gemma Gray-Hall is running for the NDP and trying to keep this riding orange. She ran for Windsor City Council back in 2018 and lost. She's a major gift officer at the University of Windsor, so she builds relationships and seeks out donors for the university. And then there's Gary Kashak. He's representing the Liberals, and he's a first-time city councillor for Ward 8, elected to that position back in 2018. And Kashak has spent 38 years working for the Canada Revenue Agency and then the Canada Border Services Agency. And they're, of course, not the only ones running. It's quite a crowded ballot here in Windsor-Tecumseh. There are 7 other names that people can vote for inside a polling station like this one.
Thanks for that, Jason. The CBC's Jason Vio reporting from the Windsor-Tecumseh riding. And we turn now to the riding of Windsor West, where the incumbent NDP Lisa Gretzky is on the ballot. The riding, too, has been an NDP stronghold. Our Jacob Barker has been in Windsor West talking to locals as they headed in to vote. Jacob, what are voters telling you?
Yeah, Kat, I've heard a wide array of different issues from voters as they were heading in to the polling stations today. Everything from gun control to healthcare. And of course, this riding also has the downtown core of Windsor, where we've seen the highest number of overdoses in this region. And so the way that the governments deal with the opiate crisis and their drug policies played very strongly into the way a lot of voters that I spoke to took to the ballot box with them today.
And Jacob, what can you tell us about who is in the race?
Yeah, as you said, this is an NDP riding. It has been since 2014. Incumbent Lisa Gretzky has held this riding since then. Before that, it was a Liberal that held power here. Well, there are 2 newcomers that are trying to unseat Gretzky. There is John Leontowicz of the Progressive Conservative Party. He is the former police chief in LaSalle, as well as Linda McCurdy. She's a criminal lawyer. They're going to do their best to give her a run for her money tonight. So we'll see how that turns out. Kat?
Thanks for that, Jacob. That's CBC's Jacob Barker reporting from the Windsor West riding tonight. Polls close at 9 p.m. tonight, and our Queen's Park reporter Mike Crawley will be watching closely as the results roll in. And he joins me now to talk about what to watch for as the story of election night unfolds. So, Mike, thanks for being here. How quickly could we get a decision tonight?
We could see something happen very, very quickly, Katarina. So, folks, you're definitely going to want to tune in before the polls close at 9 o'clock. That's because in Ontario, 93% of the ballots that are cast by people are counted electronically. So we're expecting to start receiving results within minutes. And if the trends are certainly strong, there could be a decision made by the CBC News decision desk projecting who's going to form government very, very quickly.
And Mike, it is majority or bust for Doug Ford tonight. So what will you be watching for to determine whether the PCs are on track for one?
Okay, so Katarina, I think there's 2 key things. One is, can the PCs hold on to the seats in which they're the most vulnerable? And so I'm looking at, in particular, let's say about 15 ridings or so where they had the smallest margins of victory in the last election. If I'm looking at those 15 and I'm seeing that the PCs are winning in most of those, they're on a very solid track towards a majority. And then the question becomes, how many votes are they actually peeling away from the New Democrats in particular to build and have an even potentially bigger majority than the last time?
And if the PCs do hold on to a majority, the big question then is who becomes the official opposition? What should we be looking for in the fight between the Liberals and the NDP?
Yeah, so the NDP have a pretty big cushion over the Liberals in that they had 40 seats in the last election compared to the Liberals only having 7. So, you know, the Liberals have pretty much nowhere to go but up. And so the question is going to be if the PCs are starting to peel away a few seats from the New Democrats in places like Southwestern Ontario, in the Windsor area, for instance. And if the NDP is also losing seats to the Liberals in Toronto, then it could be a close race there. But from what I've been hearing from Liberal sources, they're confident in winning about 20 seats, but that may not necessarily be enough to get them into position for forming official opposition, but then it would be pretty tight with the NDP in that case.
Mike, what happens tonight could determine the future of some of the leaders. What are the chances that we get a big announcement in one of their speeches?
So I've been talking to a lot of New Democrats over the past number of days, and the general consensus that I'm getting from them is that Andrea Horwath's time as leader is up, and that she's aware of that as well. And so I will be most surprised if we don't get some sort of an announcement from Andrea Horwath about her next plans. With Stephen Del Duca, though, from the Liberals, that one seems a bit more touch and go, because he was pretty defiant yesterday, as we talked about last night on the show, insisting he's going to stay on no matter what the result. If the result, though, is really, really bad for the Liberals, there's going to be a lot of questions about why it is that he's wanting to stay on.
Thanks for this, Mike. Mike Crawley is our Queen's Park reporter, and Mike will also be part of CBC's election special. The countdown to results begins at 8 p.m. Eastern Time on CBC TV and CBC News Network. The PC leader, Doug Ford, has run a front-runners campaign, leading in the polls from wire to wire. And the question tonight appears to be, can the PCs add to their seat count? Lisa Shing joins us now from the PC headquarters in Etobicoke. Lisa, the stage is set for what the PCs hope is a big party tonight.
It really is, Katarina. To my left, you can't see, but Ford's bus that he's been taking to campaign stops is parked here already, the Yes Express. And of course, over my right shoulder, if you can see, there are balloons ready to be dropped. So the mood here is pretty good. I think the PCs are feeling pretty confident going into tonight. All signs that there could be a party later on.
And now that the campaigning is done, how are the PCs feeling about the job they did?
Yeah, I think they're feeling really good. They're pretty much oozing confidence, I think. They ran a pretty tight campaign, one that was really tailored to PC leader Doug Ford. You know, it had him visiting a lot of construction sites, projecting the image that he is for the people, that he's for the working people, and also they were tightly controlled as well. So they weren't in a lot of public settings, so maybe not a lot of room for protesters. And also on a lot of days, he either didn't have any media availability or only had photo ops. So this was a strategic move on the campaign's part to really limit any exposure or really avoid running the risk of making a mistake. So we will see in just a few hours' time whether or not that strategy worked, Katarina.
Thanks for this, Lisa. That is CBC's Lisa Shing at the PC headquarters in Etobicoke. Turning now to news in the United States. The man who shot and killed 4 people at a medical building in Oklahoma yesterday was a patient of one of the victims, a surgeon who had performed back surgery on him. Tulsa's police chief spoke about the deadly incident at a press conference today.
We have also found a letter on the suspect which made it clear that he came in with the intent to kill Dr. Phillips and anyone who got in his way.
The suspect, Michael Lewis, bought the rifle hours before opening fire. He blamed Dr. Preston Phillips for continuing back pain after recent surgery. He had called the clinic about the problem repeatedly and saw the surgeon about it on Tuesday. Lewis died of a gunshot wound after killing Dr. Phillips, another doctor, a receptionist, and a patient. Authorities believe he died by suicide. Turning back to local news, the Windsor Essex Health Unit gave what it says is its last COVID-19 briefing this morning. This was at one point a daily occurrence in the early days of the pandemic, but then became less frequent as time went on. The acting medical officer of health says they will manage the virus like other diseases. He says now the team can better focus on pre-pandemic activities like getting young people up to date on other vaccinations.
Getting vaccinated reduces your likelihood of developing these diseases, and it also keeps our community healthy. And I would encourage people to get vaccinated and be up to date on their vaccine.
The health unit says about 13,000 youth don't have updated vaccine records, including those who have not gotten vaccines, plus those who have but just haven't sent in their confirmation. Vaccines for young people the vaccines that they must get include measles, mumps, rubella, meningitis, and HPV. Students who are not up to date could be suspended from attending school in September. Windsor Police want more help finding video that would help with investigations. That's why the service is launching a voluntary security camera registry. It's open to businesses and individuals. Dale Molnar has more on this new tool to fight crime.
The Windsor Police Service is asking you to register your cameras with us.
Windsor Police often use security camera footage to help solve crimes. Right now, they have to go around areas asking if anyone has footage they could use. With this registry, police would know where the cameras are.
So instead of having to go out and canvass, which can be extremely time consuming, this is a great tool for us to be able to have immediate access to know where there's surveillance cameras in the city. This is a completely voluntary registry, and it does not give the Windsor Police Service access to anyone's cameras. We would still have to make that initial contact with that person, and they would have to give us permission for any surveillance that may have been captured.
The owners of this bakery have security cameras and are in favor of the registry.
I think helping out the community and trying to find who's doing these things is really awesome. I know we got broken into not long ago and we didn't end up finding anything, but people had the cameras. I think that's a great idea, and helping the community, helping the officers.
So if you had one, you would register?
I would, yes, just for peace of mind.
Now, some people have posted on social media that they feel that there are privacy concerns related to this, like Big Brother is watching. However, criminology professor Michael Arntfield says there's nothing to worry about.
I think to me, this is just an extension of what's sort of been underway in the US for some time, whereby if they can minimize the time and effort involved in canvassing for video, and when there's an incident, pull up a map essentially of where local businesses and homes that have video surveillance equipment are located. I mean, this is going to significantly expedite the early stages of a major investigation.
However, he says if you do hand over video to police and it gets used as evidence in court, police say there is a chance you could get called to testify.
Most likely that would occur in very major cases, and officers would explain that to people when they are asking for that surveillance video.
Police say you don't have to hand over the video if you don't want to, and they say you can opt out at any time. In order to participate in the registry, go to the Windsor Police website. Dale Molnar, CBC News, Windsor.
We turn now to victory for the Spits. It was a packed house last night, full of excitement as it became official that the Windsor Spitfires are off to the finals of the Ontario Hockey League. They defeated the Flint Firebirds 4-0. It was Game 7 of their Western Conference final. The victory sets up a final between the OHL's top teams this season, the Spits, and the Hamilton Bulldogs, who topped the league. Game 1 is tomorrow in Hamilton. Let's take a live look outside there. A cool off in temperatures today, a high of 22 with a low of 10 overnight. And Colette will be here after the break with more. Stay with us. Colette Kennedy joins us now for a look at our weather. And Colette, there's still a little bit of time on the clock for folks to get outside and vote. So what can they expect if they head out there?
Yeah, that's right. We've got to exercise that right. I was thinking today after I voted, all the different ways I've kind of voted emotionally over the years. Like sometimes you vote, you know, strategically. Sometimes you place your vote from the heart. And sometimes because you're upset about something. And so you want to make a point. But there's so many reasons because it was fought so hard, I think, in the suffrage movement to get the right to vote. So exercise it. If you haven't been out yet, you can get some exercise getting there too. So 6 to 7 p.m., 23. And look at this, clear skies. There's nothing to worry about here, 21. And then sun doesn't set till 9:02. So the whole time until the polls close at 9, you get daylight hours. All right, here we go. Our current temperatures, 23, 19 in Chatham-Kent, Sarnia, and elsewhere. You're seeing Goderich there in the mid-teens. And, you know, it's quiet now. There were a little bit of showery activity as this little line pushed through. A lot of that not even reaching the ground. We're kind of the rose between two thorns. I know rainfall is good sometimes, but if you consider that's one thorn there and here's the other back here. And so we're in this ridge of high pressure, so bringing in some clearer conditions overnight. However, as the winds drop off, there is the chance that we'll see some fog development. So I would expect at least some patchy fog coming on through. So think of that in the early morning hours until that burns off. It will burn off because the sun will be shining bright. And even as we go into the afternoon, a few pop-up showers. They're primarily, though, going to happen into the later afternoon east of southwestern Ontario. So into Saturday looks good too. It's not till we get till Sunday and then we'll start to see some change-ups in the sky conditions. Overnight tonight, some cooler temperatures in store. Comfortable sleeping weather. We said that about last night. Tonight, maybe a little cool for some if you've got the window open. Looking good into tomorrow, some nice temperatures, and then beyond that, really comfortable into the weekend in terms of how things are going to feel. But I do bring in a chance for showers, especially later in the day, Sunday, and then we've got that into Monday and Tuesday too, Katerina.
Thanks for that, Colette.
You're welcome.
When we come back, we're going to take a look at public transit and the struggle to bring some riders back. Stay with us. When the pandemic first hit, many commuters stopped taking the bus or train. Yet, despite record high gasoline prices and with many more workers returning to the office, public transit has still not bounced back. CBC's Kyle Bax finds out why.
These trains should be full. Activity in the city's core is nearly back to normal, but transit use is sluggish, about half of what it should be.
Calgary is heavily influenced by people who like to drive. And our downtown market has a lot of people that historically have always wanted to drive to work.
Across the country, public transit use is increasing, but is still about 50% lower compared to 2019, even with more workers heading back to the office.
The nature of work and work-related travel has changed significantly post-pandemic.
Some people work from home or are back in the habit of driving, this professor says, while others are conscious about COVID and wanting more personal space.
It'll take at least 2, 3, 4 years for us to go back to where we are, if we ever go back to where we are.
Ridership in small cities is the slowest to recover. Meanwhile, in some parts of the GTA, passenger levels are more than 70% of normal. At this Toronto bus terminal, activity is picking up. There are few empty seats, says this student who's commuting from Mississauga to Ajax for a work internship.
I think a lot of people are returning back to work, and so because of that, it's getting busier and busier by the day.
Transit agencies should prepare now for more passengers, some experts say, especially with rising fuel prices.
Suddenly, people are going to get really upset about a transit service that is not fast, not convenient, not on time, not getting them to where they need to get to.
For now, it's a juggling act for transit agencies, trying to keep costs in check while also providing enough service and routes to entice passengers back. Kyle Bax, CBC News, Calgary.
And back to our main story, the provincial election. Polls close in a little over 2 hours. We'll be watching as the results roll in for the latest. You can go to cbc.ca/Windsor. You can also watch our TV election special. The countdown to results begins at 8 p.m. Eastern Time on CBC TV and CBC News Network. And we'll start bringing you results as soon as polls close at 9 p.m. And I will also be a part of that coverage. I'll be stationed from the riding of Essex to see if that riding will stay orange or if the PCs can turn it blue or another result altogether. That's it for CBC Windsor News. Thanks for watching and have a good night.